Imagine a city so magnificent that its name has survived for more than 2,000 years. A city of shining temples, bustling harbors, advanced engineering, and immense wealth. A city said to have ruled the seas before disappearing beneath the waves in a single catastrophic day. This is Atlantis. For centuries, Atlantis has occupied a strange place between history and mythology. Some believe it was nothing more than an allegory invented by the Greek philosopher Plato. Others argue that behind the legend lies the memory of a real civilization destroyed by natural disaster. What if Atlantis wasn't a fantasy kingdom filled with impossible technology? What if it was inspired by a real Bronze Age city? Today, using archaeological evidence, historical records, and leading scholarly theories, we will reconstruct what the real Atlantis may have looked like. This is not the Atlantis of movies and fantasy novels. This is Atlantis as it might have existed in the ancient world. Our journey begins in ancient Greece around 360 BCE. The philosopher Plato wrote two famous dialogues called Timaeus and Critias. In these texts, he described a powerful island civilization located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, known today as the Strait of Gibraltar. According to Plato, Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined. It possessed enormous wealth, fertile lands, powerful fleets, and a magnificent capital city. The city itself was built around concentric rings of land and water. Canals connected the city to the sea. Bridges crossed waterways. Temples gleamed with precious metals. At the center stood a grand sanctuary dedicated to Poseidon. But Plato's story did not end with glory. The Atlanteans became arrogant. Their morality declined. The gods punished them. Earthquakes and floods struck. And in a single day and night, Atlantis vanished beneath the sea. For generations, readers debated whether Plato was describing history or creating a philosophical lesson. Most modern historians agree that Plato used the story to explore political ideas. Yet many researchers believe that elements of the tale may have been inspired by real events, remembered through centuries of oral tradition. To understand these possibilities, we must travel back nearly 1,000 years before Plato's time. Back to one of the most advanced civilizations of the Bronze Age. Around 2000 BCE, the island of Crete became home to an extraordinary maritime culture. Today we call them the Minoans. The Minoans built large palaces, sophisticated cities, and extensive trade networks spanning the Mediterranean. Their ships traveled to Egypt, Anatolia, the Levant, Cyprus, and mainland Greece. Unlike many ancient civilizations, Minoan art rarely emphasized warfare. Instead, frescoes depicted nature, ceremonies, athletes, dolphins, flowers, and elegant architecture. Archaeologists have uncovered advanced drainage systems, running water, paved roads, and multi-story buildings. To the Greeks who lived centuries later, memories of such a civilization may have seemed almost mythical. The largest Minoan center was Knossos. At its height, the palace complex covered several acres. Hundreds of rooms surrounded open courtyards. Grand staircases connected multiple levels. Walls were decorated with colorful paintings. Storage rooms held enormous clay jars filled with olive oil, wine, grain, and other valuable goods. From above, the palace looked like a maze. This may even have inspired later Greek legends of labyrinths and lost kingdoms. If Atlantis had a historical foundation, many scholars believe the Minoans provide one of the strongest candidates. But there was another island that may be even more important to the story. A place frozen in time by catastrophe. About 120 kilometers north of Crete lies the volcanic island known today as Santorini. In ancient times, it was called Thera. Around 1600 BCE, Thera was home to a thriving Minoan settlement called Akrotiri. Akrotiri was one of the most remarkable cities of the Bronze Age. Excavations revealed paved streets, multi-story homes, sophisticated drainage systems, and stunning wall paintings. The city displayed levels of urban planning that rivaled many societies centuries later. As we reconstruct the streets of Akrotiri, we see merchants carrying goods from distant lands. Sailors unload cargo from ships docked in the harbor. Artisans create pottery painted with marine life and geometric patterns. Children play in shaded courtyards. Women and men participate in religious ceremonies. The city feels prosperous, organized, and connected to a wider world. Yet beneath their feet, a disaster was building. Thera sat atop a massive volcano. For centuries, pressure accumulated deep underground. Then came one of the largest volcanic eruptions in human history. The signs likely appeared first as earthquakes. Buildings shook, walls cracked, people fled. Many may have evacuated before the final eruption occurred. Then the volcano exploded. The eruption released immense amounts of ash, gas, and rock into the atmosphere. Columns of volcanic material rose tens of kilometers into the sky. Day turned to night. Ash rained across the sea. The explosion shattered much of the island itself. Enormous tsunamis raced across the eastern Mediterranean. Some waves may have reached heights of dozens of meters. Coastal settlements were devastated. Ships were smashed against shorelines. Harbors disappeared beneath surging water. The environmental consequences stretched far beyond Thera. Agricultural systems were disrupted. Trade routes collapsed. Regional economies suffered. For people living in the Bronze Age, the event must have seemed apocalyptic. Imagine witnessing a prosperous island civilization destroyed by fire, earthquakes, and giant waves. Generations later, stories of such a catastrophe could easily evolve into legends of a lost kingdom swallowed by the sea. This possibility forms the core of one of the most influential Atlantis theories. Let us imagine that Plato's Atlantis was inspired by memories of Minoan Crete and volcanic Thera. What would such a city actually look like? The first thing visitors would notice is the harbor. Unlike the marble cities of classical Greece, Bronze Age ports were alive with movement and color. Wooden ships crowded the waterfront. Their sails fluttered in the sea breeze. Dock workers unloaded copper ingots, spices, textiles, pottery, and precious goods from distant lands. Merchants negotiated prices in multiple languages. The smell of salt water mixed with olive oil, fish, and smoke from cooking fires. Nearby warehouses stored imported products from across the Mediterranean. This was a civilization connected to an international trading network. Wealth flowed constantly through its ports. The sea was its highway. The harbor was its beating heart. Moving inland, visitors entered carefully planned streets lined with multi-story buildings. Unlike the rough villages often imagined in popular culture, Minoan cities were surprisingly sophisticated. Stone foundations supported structures made from mud brick and timber. Homes featured multiple rooms. Many contained upper floors. Windows allowed light and air to circulate. Some buildings had indoor plumbing. Drainage channels carried wastewater away from living areas. Paved roads connected neighborhoods. Public spaces served as gathering points for commerce and ceremonies. The city buzzed with activity. Craftsmen shaped bronze tools. Potters fired decorated vessels. Textile workers spun and dyed fabrics. Children learned trades from their families. Travelers shared stories from Egypt, Cyprus, and the Near East. This was not an isolated island kingdom. It was part of a vibrant, interconnected world. At the center of the city stood the palace. This was not merely a royal residence. It functioned as an administrative, economic, religious, and cultural hub. The palace rose above surrounding buildings. Bright red columns supported upper levels. Large courtyards hosted ceremonies and public gatherings. Storerooms contained wealth collected from across the region. Officials recorded inventories using a writing system now known as linear A scribes, carefully tracked goods entering and leaving the complex. Priests oversaw religious activities. Messengers carried information between distant settlements. The palace represented order and authority. Its walls displayed vivid frescoes. Blue dolphins swam across painted rooms. Young athletes leaped over charging bulls. Flowers bloomed in brilliant colors. These artworks reflected a society deeply connected to nature and ritual. Rather than depicting endless warfare, they celebrated life, movement, and beauty. Plato described a great temple dedicated to Poseidon. If Atlantis was inspired by Minoan culture, its central sanctuary may have looked very different from later Greek temples. Bronze Age religious architecture emphasized sacred spaces integrated into larger palace complexes. Ceremonies involved music, offerings, processions, and symbolic rituals. Priestesses likely played important roles. Sacred symbols included double axes, horns of consecration, and representations of bulls. As worshippers gathered, incense drifted through the air. Drums echoed across courtyards. Offerings of wine, grain, and oil were presented to the gods. The sea occupied a special place in spiritual life. For an island civilization dependent on maritime trade, the ocean was both provider and threat. It delivered wealth. It also possessed the power to destroy. That duality may lie at the heart of the Atlantis legend. At its peak, this reconstructed Atlantis was among the richest societies in the Mediterranean. Its influence extended across numerous islands and coastal regions. Its ships carried luxury goods between distant kingdoms. Its artisans produced objects admired throughout the ancient world. Its engineers constructed advanced urban infrastructure. Its leaders controlled strategic trade routes. Foreign visitors would have been impressed by its prosperity. To neighboring societies, Atlantis may have seemed invincible. Yet, history repeatedly demonstrates a simple truth. The greater the complexity of a civilization, the more vulnerable it can become to disruption. Trade networks fail. Natural disasters strike. Political systems collapse, and prosperity can vanish with surprising speed. The destruction of Atlantis, if based on real events, was likely not a single moment. Instead, it may have unfolded across decades. The eruption of Thera caused immense damage. Tsunamis devastated coastal communities. Trade routes were interrupted. Economic systems weakened. Agricultural production suffered. As regional instability increased, rival powers gained opportunities. Among these rivals were the Mycenaeans of mainland Greece. Over time, Minoan influence declined, Mycenaean control expanded, palaces were abandoned or destroyed. Population patterns shifted. The great maritime civilization that once dominated the region gradually faded from prominence. Centuries passed, memories blurred, facts mixed with legend, stories transformed. What had been a complex historical process became a dramatic narrative of sudden destruction. A magnificent island kingdom lost beneath the sea. Atlantis was born. Not all researchers connect Atlantis to the Minoans. Over the years, scholars have proposed numerous alternative locations. Some point towards southern Spain. Others suggest the Atlantic Ocean. A few have linked Atlantis to regions in North Africa. There are theories involving Malta, Sardinia, and even distant continents. Most lack strong archaeological support, yet they reveal something important. The Atlantis story resonates because it touches universal themes. Civilizations rise, civilizations fall. Natural disasters reshape human history. Knowledge can be lost. Great cities can disappear. Atlantis serves as a symbol of these realities. Whether or not a single historical Atlantis ever existed, many ancient societies experienced catastrophic destruction. The legend endures because it reflects genuine human experiences. Imagine standing on a hill overlooking the city just before disaster strikes. The sun glitters across the harbor. Merchant ships arrive from distant shores. Farmers bring produce to market. Artisans display their work. Children laugh in courtyards. Priests prepare ceremonies. Officials conduct business inside the palace. Life continues as it has for generations. No one knows what is coming. Far away, beneath the island of Thera, pressure builds within the earth. The first tremors pass through stone streets. People pause. Birds take flight. The ground shakes again, stronger this time. Days later, ash appears on the horizon. A dark cloud rises into the sky. The sea behaves strangely. Then comes the eruption. The roar is unlike anything anyone has ever heard. Shockwaves race across the water. Darkness spreads. Tsunamis surge toward the coast. Ships are lifted and shattered. Buildings collapse. Harbors disappear. Entire communities are transformed forever. For survivors, the event becomes the defining memory of their age. For their descendants, it becomes legend. For future civilizations, it becomes myth. Unlike fictional versions of Atlantis, archaeology provides tangible evidence. We have excavated streets. We have uncovered homes. We have studied frescoes. We have reconstructed ships. We have analyzed volcanic deposits. We can see the world that inspired the legend. Akrotiri demonstrates that highly advanced Bronze Age urban centers existed. Minoan Crete proves that maritime civilizations could achieve remarkable sophistication. The Thera eruption confirms that catastrophic destruction occurred on a scale capable of inspiring enduring myths. These discoveries do not prove Atlantis existed exactly as Plato described, but they reveal that behind the legend stand real people, real cities, and real disasters. The line between history and myth is often thinner than we imagine. So, what was Atlantis? Was it a philosophical invention? A warning about pride and power? A distorted memory of the Minoan civilization? A recollection of the destruction caused by the Thera eruption? Or perhaps a combination of all these elements? We may never know with certainty. Yet, the search for Atlantis continues because the story speaks to something fundamental in human nature. We are fascinated by lost worlds. We wonder what vanished civilizations looked like. We imagine walking their streets and hearing the voices of people long gone. Today, archaeology allows us to come closer than ever before. The real Atlantis may not have been a city of magical crystals or impossible technology. It may have been something even more remarkable. A thriving Bronze Age civilization, a center of trade, art, engineering, and culture, a place shaped by human ambition, and ultimately transformed by the overwhelming forces of nature. Somewhere beneath layers of ash, beneath ancient ruins and centuries of legend, echoes of that world still remain, waiting to tell their story. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of Atlantis. Not whether it existed, but how much of it we have already found.